Have you ever wondered what it would take to have a stress-free money tree? Absolutely, our parents told us that money doesn't grow on trees, but I'm here to tell you it actually does. In actual fact, this is an analogy I use, the stress-free money tree, for a time in your life where your investments keep generating income while you sleep. And believe it or not, it does happen. So, how is it that we can have financial freedom? Now, financial freedom is the thing everyone seems to be focusing on. But here's the challenge. Financial freedom, like the fruit of a tree, doesn't just appear. Yes, it's what we see above the surface, that financial freedom of a lifestyle we'd love to have. But it exists only as the outcome of a really strong, nurturing, growing system that can feed this money tree. And so we look deeper, and what we see is that the first massive piece that we need to put in place is a financial foundation. And a financial foundation is when you manage to get enough income to cover your expenses. And that's the first step, so that you're not in debt. But then thereafter, that you can create sufficient gap between your income and your expenses to generate enough of that money that you can start saving and investing and basically building your tree, building this tree of investments that's going to generate the income. And that then happens when we can start to create financial independence. Now think of financial independence as the ability to reach ground level. That is, the ability for you to have sufficient investments that the income from those investments can cover your most basic needs. They can cover your water, your lights, your electricity, the cost of your food, the cost of your basic healthcare, the cost of your basic needs. Not what we think is our basic needs, because there are a whole bunch of things we'd like to add to that, but what really would be your basic needs, so that you never have to rely on anybody else in order to feed you, to clothe you, to protect you, and to have a house to live in. So that is your financial independence. And then lastly, what we do is look at financial protection. And financial protection is around the concept that you have worked so hard to reach the standard of living that you have now, that we don't want anything to impact that. We don't want anything to derail it, be it an emergency, some unexpected crisis that happens in your life, or be it that you become unemployed, or be it that, God forbid, you become disabled and can't earn, or get a disease like cancer or something that would wipe out your savings. So what we want to make sure is that you are financially protected, and then secondly, that your loved ones are financially protected, so that you don't have to spend your hard-earned cash just to stand still. So when we look at that then brings us to the bottom piece, is that financial foundation, financial independence, and financial protection are crucial to have in place first, before you then are able to see and start to see the fruits of financial freedom. And that also then takes us to one last point, which is that this beautiful tree exists within soil. And that soil is your mindset. It's how you think about money. And here's the problem, is that the person you are today and the money habits you have today will not be able to sustain and build and grow a beautiful tree. You have to keep, as in all things to do with life, the person you are today will not create the amazing future of tomorrow. You as a person have got to grow, you've got to change, and you've got to look and deal at all those past hurts, those past pains, and those past habits that make your soil not such a great place for it to thrive in. Our finances exist within the context of our story, who we are, what we prioritize, how we live our lives. And what happens is that when that mindset, when your state of being is so well nourished, and you actively work to change the way you think about money, you actively work to upskill yourself, to give yourself all of the skills and competencies you need to handle and manage and prune and grow and build this amazing stress-free money tree, when that happens, that is when you are able to be truly financially free. So when we look at this first step of financial freedom, what we are wanting to do is to take that first step and say, how do we make it as stress-free as possible? Because for most of us, every single month has a certain amount of stress in it. We have the stress when it comes to looking at, is the income going to cover the expenses in the month? We have the stress if we've just been on holiday, because usually we've got to pay some of that back. We have the stress where we think we've got every cent accounted for, and then one of our kids breaks their arm or the car breaks down. And what we want to do is put in place a system that works automatically to make sure that we have the money we need in order to be able to invest into our financial independence and then our financial freedom without having to derail those investments. Whenever I speak to people, there's always a similar story, which is, hey, my money was going so well, and then, or otherwise, I tend to find that we run out of money by the 24th of the month and we just can't stretch it enough to get to the end of the month. So what we want to do is we want to be able to have a financial foundation that is stress-free. We want to put in place automated systems. We want to understand our money to such an extent that we know exactly where it's going, not because we want to track every cent, but what we want to know is that we've got the big, most important things taken care of. And so what happens to us is that we look at our money and our everyday money that we spend in terms of these different categories. What is the stuff we need? What is the stuff we need to save? What is the things that in actual fact we don't need but we want, and our kids want? And so our kids feature into this money system a lot at this stage of our life. And then obviously explore. All of us want to go and at least travel, see something, have a little holiday, explore the world. And then as humans, all of us need to give. And so these are the demands on our money. But what tends to happen is that we tend to lose sight of what's the difference between a need and a want. Some of us squash out that saving so that it doesn't happen. But what we need to do is to start thinking about this so that we can plan for our financial independence and financial freedom. And what happens is when we are retired or when we are able to stop working, for most of us, by that stage, our children would have left the house, so they no longer become an expense. But what also happens is that we don't have to have money that we save or invest for that stage because we've reached that stage. So when we think of the money we need to stop working, in actual fact, it's a time when we're not saving towards our investments, but we have enough money to cover these categories. And as I said, the first step of this is financial independence. And financial independence is when we have enough of those amazing investments that generate the income we need to cover our basic needs. That's when we will know that forever we will never need to rely on our children or a boss or a company or any other person to pay for our basic needs. That we are then having a choice as to whether we work more or work harder to create more money for things we want and the life we want to explore and the people we want to give to. So this is the basic of the stress-free money tree and how we move that stress-free money management system all the way through from our financial foundation. We create financial independence, we make sure that that's protected, and only then will we be on a path with a solid, strong foundation and root system to have financial freedom. Mindful of the fact that it is our mindset that creates the soil for all of this stuff to really be nurtured and to really create strength. So the first step to creating mindfulness, to knowing what you really think about money, is to start being mindful of when you pay it. Now, there are two ways that you can do it. Either when you're physically handing over the money, that's the first place to start to be mindful. Why am I buying this object? Do I really want it? Would I rather have this piece of takeaway than, for example, put that money towards a holiday? Is this takeaway worth a holiday? I don't know, but maybe it is. So here's the thing, is that there is no right or wrong, and there is no worth it that is universal. For every one of us, what we think is worth it from a money perspective is completely different to someone else. But the absolute first place to start about being mindful is when you give your money to someone else. And that can be a point at which you physically hand over money. But for many of us, we have so many direct debits and things that hit our bank account that we actually have to go back and go through each one of them and go, did I really want this? Is it really worth it for me? And so that's when we need to start categorizing our money and being mindful of whether this money covers a real need in life. If the chips were down and we had to totally cut our budget, would we still have this money? That's a need. The next one is a want. And anything that is in the want category is something that effectively is our day-to-day living expenses outside of needs. And when it comes to things like grocery, I tend to say, kind of put 50-50, because most of us are spending grocery money on things we don't need. However, if you are really living tight, then most of your money would be in the needs category when it comes to groceries. So I want you to think of this money tracking not as some terrible process that, people want to beat you up about, or you beat yourself up about. What I want you to do is to take it as an exercise in mindfulness. What was I thinking when I bought this? Do I really need it? Would I change it? Is it worth it? Is it worth the things that are important to me? So there are 3 different ways that you may choose to do this. The first one is to actually fill in the very detailed, complicated spreadsheet. And for me, that's actually what I do. And I remember someone saying to me, what system do I use? And I said, well, in actual fact, for me, I still handwrite, even in my businesses. Every single little expense is put into an Excel spreadsheet, because that whole process of doing it is when I'm much more mindful about the money. If you just scan your bank statements, you often don't engage with it on the level of mindfulness that I'm talking about. So what we want to do is to make sure that we are truly absorbing where our money is going. So for some of you, that is that you're going to be doing the big full Excel spreadsheet. But then I have clients who hate Excel or have never used Excel and probably never will. So I want to give you something that's sustainable, something that can work to help you to embrace this whole process. Now, I know that for many people, these things are scary. So I'm going to work it step by step. And the aim of these videos is that you go back and you can actually just look at each one of those things and redo it again the next month and the next month and the next month. And I want you just to trust me that I'm going to take you through it step by step. So if you're not going to use the big spreadsheet, then another thing is to use one of these expense tracking tools that brings all of your different accounts into one place. And from those tools, you can then only once download all of the numbers so that you only have to deal in one place. You don't have to go and log on and then track this, track that, track the next thing. So I'm going to show you one of the tools I use, which is 22Seven. So this is 22Seven. And for those of you in South Africa, this is a system that I strongly recommend. There are many different one of these. In actual fact, it's powered by a piece of international technology called Yodlee, and Yodlee powers most of these things that pull in all of your money. And 22Seven is from a group called Old Mutual, which is one of the biggest companies in South Africa and a very trusted financial services provider. So you may need to sign up, and in signing up, what you're effectively doing is you're going to log in and create an account with 22Seven. And this is what it looks like. So effectively what you're doing is you give them your name, your email address, and you create a password. And that's what it takes to log on. And it says here, it helps you to see your money in one place, get an automatic personalized budget, and know exactly how much you're spending on what. So that's why we use the system. So I already have an account, so I'm going to log in. Now this is your home screen. For me, I have just used a few of my accounts. I haven't used all of them, and I haven't put John's in because obviously I don't want to share all of that data. But I have been doing this for a couple of months, or actually, in fact, a couple of years now. And so what you'll see is that there's a lot of kind of information that's already there. And the way these systems work is that you give them the logon details to your different credit cards and bank sites and investment sites, etc. And they pull the information from it and update it into your bank accounts, your credit cards, your investments. If you have a home loan, it'll pull in a home loan kind of different category. My house is fully paid off, so you can't see that. And people say to me, is it safe? I think it's as safe as it can be. It's a trusted financial services provider, and most of you could get a similar type of thing through your bank, might offer them. But I do believe that this is probably as safe as it gets. So what you want to do is this gives you a summary, I guess, of what they call your net worth. So for the accounts that I've put in, that's here. And you can then come and see all the transactions. And the first step that you do is you have to categorize your transactions. So what I do is I tend to come and I tend to look at anything that hasn't been categorized. And in actual fact, let me just categorize one so I can show you. You click on here. And then this is Izzy and Emma Dance Mask. And so what I say is that in the spending group it's day-to-day spending. So they have very few spending groups. So I can put it in day-to-day. And the category, what I would put it in is children. So it's in the children category over there. And so it'll show up in the children category. So that's how you do it. And you go and you find this little tick at the end, and that would help you. And that's the first step that you have to do. You have to categorize your transactions as much as possible, because then it just makes it easier for you to do. So whether it is that you have a particular exceptional thing, so for example, a holiday that you went on, a party that you threw, a renovation project that you did on your house, you can create these categories as much as possible. So if I wanted to create a new category, I could just put there party or anything different and then press create. So I've categorized this as children, and so I then click on the little box and it's all categorized, and this is how we can work. So then what I then do is I come here in the transactions thing, and I can then go down and I can go and export all of my transactions. So what I can do is these are all still in categories. I can put over here all, and then I can go and I can export it. So there are two options at this point in time. You can then go and look at for every single category. So you can look at the budget and you can say for every single category, business, clothing, coffee, donations, eating, takeaway, whatever, sport, fitness, etc. Or recurring ones, bank charges, donations, interest, rent, TV, tax, etc. Different exceptions, for example, gifts. You can go and either export them at a category level or you can export it at a transaction level. And that is the difference in the amount of detail. So I'm going to look at August, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand all the categories over here so that we can see all the different categories. And in actual fact, I could do it at different transactions, and it tells me what have I spent. If I've created a budget, what did I budget, and what is the average of the spend in the previous transactions. And so what I then do is I say, okay, actually, I'm going to export this. So you can see it's downloaded budget here, and maybe I also want to do July. So there's July, and I'm going to export July 2. Okay, so this is all my expenses over here. Now, for those of you that haven't used Excel, it just takes a little bit of practice. So use your mouse. These things are called columns over here, and these things are called rows over here. And the columns have letters of the alphabet, and the rows go through the rows one by one. And so what I'm going to do is you can, if you put your little cursor here for a line, you can double click on it and it makes it as big as the biggest thing in the cell, or otherwise I can just do it like that. Then what I can do is double click and say, okay, these are all the categories. You can see the amount, you can see the average, and if I had a budget, it could see the budget. What I want you to then do is go to this cell. So use your mouse to go in the cell, click in the cell, and then write Lisa's categories. Oops. And what I want to then do is say, are all these things needs, wants, explore, save, children, or give? And so those are the categories that we have. Bank charges happen to be a need. You can't have anything without bank charges. You can't have a bank account without bank charges usually. So we put that in need. You can't really get away from it. For me, my business, I'm going to just do a separate category called business, because in actual fact, this is pulling both a business account and a personal account so that I can get more data. So I'm just going to put that as business, so we're not going to include it. Cell phone, for me, a cell phone is a need. It goes in the need category. Clothing is often a want. Obviously, there's a bare minimum of clothing. Coffee is definitely a want, as much as I would like to think it's not. Donations is give. Eating out and takeaways is want. General purchases, well, it doesn't have a category, so it's obviously not. Maybe it's got an average. I don't know what that would be. I'd have to go in and actually look and see what the transaction was to see what it was for. Gifts. Now, there is a difference between give, which is around either tithing or financial support for a family, or donations to charities or things like that, and gifts. Gifts is part of want. It's kind of not helping sustain another human being. It's a show of affection. It's a want. Groceries, I'm going to put this in a separate category called groceries, because we're going to need to split it half. Holidays and travel, that's explore, or otherwise basic holidays and travels like a weekend away could just be a want. But let's put holidays and travels and explore. Home, utility and service is a need. Loans, I don't know what that was for. I don't have any debt, but that might have been something historic, or I don't know. But I don't have it, so that would be debt, but otherwise it would be a need. Loan repayment is a need. You have to pay that off first. Medical is in need. Personal care is in want. Phone and internet is in need. Salaries and wages would be business. Software and services would be needs often. Sport and fitness is a want. If there was absolutely no money in the world, you'd run around the block, as opposed to go to a gym instructor. Then gifts is again a want. Bank charges and fees is a need. General purchases, I don't know what it is, but there's no expense attached to it. Holidays and travel, there's no expense. Home and garden would be a want. Often home and garden stuff is not basic maintenance. So basic maintenance is an absolute need. You have to keep your house going. But things like getting a garden service, all of that, that's a want. If you didn't have any money, you would do the garden yourself. Interest is a need. You have to have interest. Investments is save. Loans, need. Sorry, I'm just trying to work out what that is. I don't know what it's pulling into that category. Salaries and wages would be often a want. Home help or things like that we pay in a personal category is actually a want, because we can do our own ironing and cleaning and things like that. Investments we put save. Bank charges need. Donations give. Home utility and services need. Interest is need. Rent or house stuff is a need. TV is a want. Tax is a need. Vehicle expenses is a need. So that's kind of where I would put and categorize. So what you're wanting to do is categorize the stuff. The part that I have skipped over is going through each one of these expenses and being mindful about where did you spend it, was it worth it, etc. But I can't kind of go through that mindfulness with you. It's just part of your process. So then the final thing is to open up the spreadsheet that you have, the stress-free money spreadsheet or the budget spreadsheet, depending on whether you're actually doing the course or you've downloaded it for free. And you see it starts like this, and it kind of walks you through the different steps. So if you have, if you're doing the full big, not light version, you would start by putting in all your property details and every single line item. But I've made a special one just for kind of a light version. And effectively you have two options, just to put the summary total or to put down the different line items. So let's look at that. Let's start off with, this is what we call a spreadsheet, and at the bottom we have these things called tabs. So if you click on the tabs, you can see the different things in the spreadsheet. So this will look familiar to you. It's just to remind you of needs, wants, explore and give. And what we do is we're wanting you to put in your actuals. And so what I tend to do is, you see this little thing over here which says make it smaller, these squares, I tend to make it smaller. And so I just drag the little dude, drag him across and then drag him wider, and I just drag him so that I can then see both spreadsheets at the same time. So let me drag this up, and then with this one I want to do the same. Press the little box, drag him across to this side, open it up, because then that allows me to see two on the same sheet. So I don't need all this detail, so I can press this pivot table field and turn it off so I can see. So you've got two choices at this stage. Either you can summarize all and sum up all of these different things, and I'm going to teach you how to do a pivot table which will give you just the main summaries of the expenses, which you can then put in these red lines of totals. Or alternatively, you can take each one of these line items and detail out the purple detail. Now, for me personally, I think this is the middle ground. As I said, there's the big, enormous spreadsheet which you do each single little one line by line at a transaction level, but we'd already summarized it to almost like a category level. And I think you lose the mindfulness if you just do it at a total level. But it's your choice. So either take it from this level and move in, or alternatively take it at the summary level and put that in. And what you're wanting is 12 months of data, because we're wanting to try and build this over time, a real insight into what our life actually costs. So I'm going to show you quickly how to summarize it, and then I will show the more detailed level. So go insert pivot table, and it actually finishes, fetches it all. If it doesn't fetch it all, what you can do is click on this little thing over here, and you can just drag your mouse. So you click and hold and drag your mouse all the way to the end, okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to say, do you want to put it on a new worksheet or existing worksheet? I always put it on a new worksheet because I just find it easier to work with. So here it is, here's this pivot table. And what we basically want to say is we want to see Lisa's categories, and we just click on it. So you can click on it and drag it down here and let it go, drag and drop. Or alternatively, if you just select, tick on the box, and then what we want to do is we want to say how much was it. So the amount was how much it was, and the amount we just drop it there. So in your budget, that was the amount that was spent, that was it. We don't need the average. You could use the average for budgeting purposes if you've got enough data or history, but otherwise you just drop it. And one of the things that often happens is, so this shows you for my business I spent 1,800. I spent nothing in Explore in August. I gave 5,195. There was a little bit in groceries. There was a lot in need. There's a bit in savings, etc. And so what I want to do is just to show you this. Sometimes what you'll see is it'll automatically just count the amount of things. So if you click on this little crocodile that goes down over here, you'll see value field settings. So for many times, this is what you'll see the first time you do it, and you think, well, I didn't spend 2 or 1 rand or 2 rand or 16. And what it's actually doing is counting it, saying how many times has save appeared in this little sheet. And in actual fact, what you want to do is just click on count of the amount and go value field settings and say I want sum. I want it to add all together. And then that gives you your different categories. And what you'll do is then you repeat it for every single month that you downloaded it. So what we're going to do now is to put this summary from the pivot table into this spreadsheet. Now these red lines here with the reddy pink lines that go across, these summarize all the detail that we'll do just later on in the video if you're doing it that way. But what you can do if you want the shortcut is just to overwrite it. So at that pink cell, you'll see that it adds up all the cells underneath. All we do is going to overwrite it. So this is needs, and the needs over here is 2457, enter, and that puts the needs. Except that what I've done is I've separated out groceries, and the reason why I did that is for most of us, we're not really sticking to the bare minimum of groceries. So I do this more later on when we go in detail, but what I want you to do is put half your groceries, you'll see over here, put half your groceries into needs and half the groceries into wants. So now because it's not adding everything up, you can't just put it into this line, which you would have normally. You're going to come here, and if you need some Excel help, it is further as we go. I've done it slowly. So we're going to put ease, and then we want half of this groceries, 10,150. So we're going to say that that is 5075, and it'll add it together. So then the next thing, we don't have any children expense here, so we're going to go down over here to wants. In August, we are going to do the wants are 3,309 equals 3,309, and then we need the other half of the groceries, which is 5075, and we pop that in. So we've done needs, we've done wants, and now we need to do explore. There were no explore expenses in that month, and so now we are going to do give. So give in this month was 5195, and save. Oh, we didn't do save. Save over here is 1594.32. And that's effectively how you then put the high level numbers in, and you'll see they've come all the way up here. Now the reason why you don't want to add them straight directly into here, which I guess you could, is because then you only have 1 month's worth of values. What you want to do is put it into this, fill each month in, so that you get a good set of average numbers for the months that you have to spend. The next option, and the option I really recommend, is to do it in more detail and more mindfully, which is only slightly more detail, which is to categorize your expenses and use it from a more detailed expense category and put it into the spreadsheet. So you would start with putting your income. Now this one I have left different line items because you want to have your income from work. If you get a bonus, you want to do that, but make sure you divide it by 12 so that we get the amount per month. And let me actually just pause and just show you what we're wanting to do. The aim of this is to get into a stage where you understand what do you actually spend per month. And for that, you want to try and do as many months as you possibly can. Why? Because as we all know, Christmas is an unbelievably expensive time. Holidays, vacations are expensive, etc. So we don't just want to take our cheapest month and think that that's what we're going to spend in a year. So what you want to do is you want to get an average per month for every single thing that you actually spend. And then what you want to see is that enough? Do you earn enough income to cover those needs? And then what we want to do is try and get a budget for something that we can live into. So again, the first thing that we're trying to work out is how much money do we spend on needs such that we can invest enough money to know that we will always have income from our investments to make that first level. So that is where we're going to, and how we're going to build that up is in this monthly actual sheet. So let's make it a bit smaller so the two can sit together. So let's take you through the expenses, and we can start putting the expenses in. So over here, you'll see that at the bottom of this is a purple bar for needs. So when you come to the monthly actions, we've got a purple bars for the main needs. So this need is bank charges and fees. So there are many different ways you can do it. You can just go through and add each line by line. What I tend to do, which is kind of a little bit, makes it a little bit easier, is I highlight this row and then I go to data and then I say filter, and it adds little filters on it. And then what I want to do is I want to just start with needs. So I click on this little crocodile down here on Lisa's category, I unselect everything and I start on needs. So it'll bring me up all the needs expenses and I can start. Okay, so bank charges and fees is a need. There's nothing there. In that one, cell phone is a need. There's nothing there. Otherwise, I would have put that into communication over here. Banking and insurance is where the bank charges would come. I think what I'm going to do is just put some numbers in there just so that you can show. So this was August's numbers. So I'm going to go all the way. This is housing. So let's start with bank charges and fees. There is actually some over here, which is 378. So I would go into banking and insurance. And then on my keyboard, so I can either scroll using this, clicking on it and holding it to scroll, or on my keyboard, I can just use the left arrow and I can go to August. Okay. So one of the things with Excel is, so this is August, and one of the things for Excel is that you can type the number straight in. So if the bank charge, you can see it over here, is 378 Rand, I can go 378.98, and then I click enter and it puts it in, and you'll see it summed it up on this side, and it's also summed it up here in the total area. So that's the first step that I could do. If I had another one, I can't just like put another one in without coming up here and saying equals 378.98, and then I just go across with my little arrow and I say plus, let's say 90. And then that would tell me what the number was for the month. Then the next thing over here that I see is medical. So then I'm going to scroll it across and I'm going to go to medical, and then I'm going to go across and I'm going to go all the way to August, and the medical over there is 2,410. So I'm going to put 2,410. And then what other country? Interest is a bank charge. So I go back to my bank charges over here, and I would say in August, plus my interest of 216 Rand and 85. We've done bank charges. So rent is 10,000. So let's say that would come into housing. Rent, go across to August, and I can put equals 10,000 over there. And tax is 2,054. So if I had to pay tax, I put it here in probably other over here, which is 7054.75. Now I know that this tax I only pay once a year. So if what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an equal sign here, and I'm going to divide it by 12. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because I know that we are looking for a monthly number I would have to save in order to have that 7,000 Rand. So I want that 7,000 Rand once a year. I need to save 588 Rand each month in order to get that number. If I just left it as, let me undo, so you see there's a little undo button. If I just left it as 7,055, the calculation will tell me that I've got to save 7,055 Rand a month for my tax, which I don't. So that's a good example of when you need to divide it by 12. Another one is things like bonuses. If you pay something every quarter, once a quarter, January, April, etc., then just divide it by 3 so that you know that you don't need all of that money all the time. The other thing you could do in this spreadsheet is what it does is it looks at how many months I've got something populated. So the other way that I could have done that is to put noughts in every single month. So now it's literally counting, and it's going to divide it by how many months have something in it. So I'm giving you just different options of how to do it. So it says it's 7,055 Rand in total. You'll see here the over 12 months is 588. So there are those two different ways that you can do it. And then vehicle expenses is transport. So I go up to transport, and then I tootle across to August, and then I pop that in over here, which is 396 Rand 89, and that's how it does. So what you'll see is that it has said that the total amount that I've spent in August for needs is 20,000 Rand, but at a per month level, because this is a 12-month cost, it is 14,081. So then what I would do is I'll click on this little funnel, and then I'll say, okay, what I want after this is I want groceries. And the reason why we kept it separate, remember, is that groceries, and you can see it up here, don't put the whole grocery bill here, just your basic needs. As a rough guide, I often tell people to put 50% of their grocery bill here and the other 50% in wants. So some people do, for example, a third, a third, a third. They say a third is needs, a third is kids, a third is wants. So whatever you do, just apply it consistently. In my particular case, it was 150 Rand. Let's just say it was 10,000 Rand, just to kind of put in a different number. So if it was 10,000 Rand, I would put half of 5,000 Rand here. So I can put it in as 5,000 Rand. Or I can say the actual number, which is equals 10,000 Rand divided by 2, which is 5,000. So that was for groceries. So then I've done needs. So then let's do save. So what has been saved? Okay, so over in this particular case, I will go down over here to, if there was a children line, I could put in a children line, savings, and then life insurance over here. So both of those were investments. So I would put those into the investments line, go all the way across to August, and say the investments is equals 1580 plus 14.32, and that would be my investments. I'll save. And then over here, as the next one is want. So what are in wants? Oh my goodness gracious me, lots of wants over here. So we go across to wants, and I can take it through eating and takeout is entertainment. So the first thing I'd have to do is nice to have groceries. So over in the August, we said that we had 10,000 Rand divided by 2 was the groceries. But now I also have this eating out and takeaways. So I need to add another, how much was that? 67 Rand. Is there anything else in the entertainment that I could, eating out and takeaways? No, nothing else in entertainment. So that's 5,067. And then what I can do is say home help. None of these were for home help. Vacations, was any of this for vacation? No. So we've done this, gifts and personal care. And so gifts, personal care, another gifts over there. So that total, if I highlight my cursor on it, is 2,403 for what I would put into other. So others, it would be over here, 2,403. So I've got equals 2,403. And then the last one is TV, which I'm also going to put into entertainment. Entertainment, let me just go check. There is a thing called freeze panes that you can do. So I could, for example, put my little cursor up here and freeze the pane. So you would go view, don't worry about this if it's going to confuse you, view freeze pane, and I can put the pane and it freezes the pane on each side of it. So then what it enables me to do is say, okay, entertainment, I was looking for August in entertainment over there, and I need to add for the TV because that's entertainment, plus 839, enter. Then what other categories have we got to do? We need to have explore. There's holidays and travels. I've got naught for this one, but I could have put some in for explore. And then give was my last item, and I gave 5,195. So then I need to go down and say give for others, and this is August, 5,195. So that is it. So what I've done is I've manually put it in. It's summed up all the wants. The pink lines across are where it's summed up. I've got no explore over there. The give has summed up in 5,195. So it's gone and summed everything. Now I want to see what's going on. So I'm going to open this up. I'm going to unfreeze the panes so that I can see everything. And I can see that it's automatically summed it up here. My needs, 19,081. If I go here, I'm going to go needs over here, 19,081 a month. Why? Because remember, this one took the 7,000 Rand and split it over the 12 months over there. So I'm going to repeat this process. We did August. I'm going to repeat this process for July. And then what I do is we've got this. So remember I said just unfreeze the panes, freeze pane, unfreeze the pane. So we come up and I get a sense of what this month stuff costs. So okay, it's 40,000 Rand on average a month, of which some is needs, some is savings, some is wants, and some is give. So what I then will do and ask you to do is to then come and budget and to say, okay, let's say for example my income was, let's put it in here in the actuals. Let's say for example my income from work in August was, what was that, expenses? So that's at 40,000 a month. So let's say my income from work is 35,000. Okay, so, and that's every single month, so I just have to put it at once knowing that it's going to be there. Then what I do is that I can come up to this budget sheet and I can say my income's always going to be 35,000 rand. So from a budget perspective, that's fine. Then what I see is that this, obviously 35,000 minus 40,000 is that I've got a shortfall of 5,500 a month. So I need to actually make some space in my account to do that. So we are going to, it is on average 5,000 rand a month, so the need one will stay. But what we're going to do is try and get the groceries from nice to have groceries at 5,400. We're going to try and get the groceries down to say 3,000 of nice to have groceries. So cut 2,000 rand of groceries there. Let's say the cleaner, we had an extra cleaning session for the garden. Let's say we can only do that. We will close that down and we'll do the garden ourselves. That's 2,000. All those others, maybe we can go to 5,000. And keep our investments at 1,585. Okay, and then I'm going to keep my causes at 5,195 over there. Oops. What else haven't we budgeted at? Let's just see if we make those changes. Is that enough? I apparently have no cell phone bill, which I think you must have, but let's just keep on going. 2410, 397, 6,000. Okay, so let's take it all the way up. Go. So we've managed to cut a whole bunch of expenses. So we've made space for 1,709. And then what I would do is make sure that, let's just say I don't have an emergency fund. I would put that full 1,709 into my emergency fund, so I'm going to budget for that. So the final step is, now that we've managed to get this thing to balance, the 35 to 35, is to just check how that fits compared to what is recommended. So if we look at what's recommended, effectively what we're wanting to do is to see what are guidelines. And so just to help you out here, I've put in those guidelines. So this is your actual spend for needs and children is 43%, which is 14,926. And the target that it should be is like 44%. So this example happens to be pretty spot on for that. We didn't change it in the budget number, so that is stays the same. For savings and life insurance, it's 26%. And what you'll see down here is that savings is 20% and life insurance is 6%. Now we have no life insurance, so it works out what that could be. So 20% savings is a 7,000 rand target. Our actual is 1,585. When we put that money in for the emergency fund, it took it up to 3,294. And so that means that from a savings perspective, we went from 9% up to 14%, but we're nowhere near kind of being able to hit the 20% that we should have for savings and the 6% for life insurance. So Wants and Explore, our Wants and Explore were 48% at 16,789. We dropped them down to 10,000, which is 29%. It's still higher than the 20% we need for Wants and Explore, and Give at 10%. Our Give is above at 15%. So those are just little guidelines that you can use. And then I've kind of put a sub version in that, which is how much should housing cost. So housing at 30% would be 10,500. Our housing cost over the 2 months is 6,000. So that's a 17% versus a 30%. And then there's some other calculators over here. So if you were to try and start to use, say, okay, actually, I need to increase savings for something, or my investments, or use some of the stuff that we say in Stress-Free Money about the fact that you need to, first of all, have an emergency fund. You need to save for your car first, and your phone first, and your computer first before you buy them, and not after you buy them. Then there are some calculators over here. And the way that it works is, let's take emergency fund, for example, is that your emergency fund, in general, it says over here, your emergency fund takes 4 years to save for most normal people. Obviously, you want to prioritize that. So if you can, you want to make sure that you can do it quicker. But I've said over here, the emergency fund is 4 years, inflation is 6%. I want this many months of emergency fund. So anywhere between 3 and 6, I've put in 3 to 6 months. So a month of expenses for me and a month of expenses for my partner, let's just say this is one person, a month of expenses is 35,000 Rand. So then I would put here, a month of expenses for me is 35,000 Rand. And then it calculates that I need to save 3,882 Rand in order to be able to do this. Car, we replace a car every 10 years. And so what I generally tend to say is if you already have a car, then what you want to do is to be able to finish paying that off and then start saving. So if we replace a car every 10 years, if the car for me is 300,000, then I'd need to save 1,831. And if a car for my partner is 400,000, then I'd need to save an additional 2,400 over 10 years. If I want to do that in 5 years, then I just change that to 5 years and it'll change that calculation. Phone replacements. A phone, if you get a phone on a contract or anything else besides paying cash for it, you're effectively borrowing money and you pay a borrowing fee, and the same for a computer. So just kind of complete those. So this is the shortcut way to getting it done. And so I'm hoping that it's helped you out, and I hope that you can at least try and get this way to get it done. Take care. Have a great day.